Christmas colors check. Okay. I ate today. I look very good. It's giving squillium. Does this look like, I feel like this looks like brown. It's red, I swear. People flipped out in the comments like 2 videos ago when I said that I was studying 6 languages in 2021. Like, how are you going to study all those languages at the same time? My brain just can't do it. Yes, you can. Yes, I promise you can. And I did say in the video I'm not studying all of these at the same time. I'm like kind of blocking them out. But anyways, it's worth chatting about and it's worth giving you guys the explanation. Oh, this is a perfect time to do it. I've been getting requests for this video for a very, very, very long time, but I thought it was just too basic. I was like, other people have made this video before, but I've never made this video before. I have a different take on things. I have a unique mind. Anyways, without further ado, let's get right into the video. So the first thing I think you should evaluate if you're going to study multiple languages at the same time is the families of these specific languages. I personally never studied multiple languages from the same family at the same time. I've never studied Portuguese and Spanish at the same time, and I still confuse them constantly. So I'm imagining if I ever studied them at the same time, I think my brain would just KO. It will be a really interesting process. I'm not saying that it's not worth it. I'm just saying that there's going to be probably a lot of overlap, depending on how close the languages are. And it might take you a longer time to get progress in those languages because of the confusion. And this is not a blanket statement because not all languages that are in the same family are always very, very similar. There could be differences in vocabulary, but they could have really similar grammar, things like that. But please take it at your discretion and kind of do an evaluation and be real with yourself. Like, is this too hard? Maybe talk to other people in the language community if you're on social media, if you know people that have studied those certain languages together before, and see what worked for them and what didn't. What was their experience? So definitely depend on other people, depend on empirical evidence. So whether that's social media, if you go to public forums or things like that. Wait, do you guys want some ASMR? I'm so sorry. And yeah, the next thing I was going to say is you need to evaluate the different levels. So if you're starting 2 languages from 0, for example, it's going to be kind of difficult, and I'm going to explain why. Okay, so languages, when you start them, I feel like they're newborn babies. They need a lot of your attention, and they need a lot of your undivided attention. So if you're giving all of that attention, like that new language energy, to multiple languages, I feel like you're going to be spread very thin, and I feel like you might get burnout and feel a lot of like demotivation right at the beginning, and that's not good. However, let's say that you have like a B2 level in Finnish, and you're like, okay, I want to start learning some Spanish. That's a much more effective dynamic, I feel like, because you're already comfortable in one and you can spend that, new language energy on just one language. And it's a really interesting dynamic in terms of motivation because you have this like newfound excitement and motivation from the new language, and then you have the comfort and the confidence of the language that you already had a higher level in. So they can have like a good effect on each other, and I really, really think that in my language learning, the most effective stretches that I've had in language learning were when I learned languages from different levels and tried to, balance them with each other. I feel like that's science. Is that science? And the last thing I think you should consider before studying multiple languages is the spaces and the roles that the languages are going to occupy in your life. So, for example, with Spanish and American Sign Language, this semester they were kind of like academic languages for me because I have 3 minors and 2 of them are in Spanish and American Sign Language. So I studied them at school, the materials provided for me, and it kind of has like a whole different feeling than a self-study language. So for this semester, I was studying German at home, and it was kind of like my escape when the other languages were kind of annoying me, when my professors were annoying me. And it was interesting because, I wasn't facing burnout because they occupied very different, they occupied different spaces in my life, and I didn't feel so much overlap. I think you're seeing a trend now that we want these things to be as separate and as different as we can possibly get them, at least in my experience. And I really, really enjoyed that this semester because it's like, okay, I'm going to crush all week with Spanish and sign language, and then, I'll have some lofty German study throughout the weekend to kind of, give me that security back in my hobby language learning. And it felt really cool. I really, really liked that dynamic. And this can come in all different forms. So maybe you have like a partner that you speak a different language with. Maybe it's a work language. Maybe it's a hobby language. Maybe it's a school language that you study. There's a lot of different options. So if you can get languages that occupy different spaces and different fields in your life, that can be really effective. It can be a really useful tool. And moving on, something that I found really effective when it comes to studying multiple languages at a time is developing different practices for them. So if you're doing the exact same routine for multiple languages, I feel like there's just a very high likelihood of burnout. And like I said, we need to differentiate them as much as we can. So like that you have a lesser likelihood of burnout, lesser likelihood of confusion, lesser likelihood of getting into a rut. So maybe your flow for Spanish is like flashcards in the morning with breakfast, then you do some app study for 30 minutes. Then later, when you're studying Greek, I don't know, you listen to a song and then you study the lyrics for an hour, and then you go listen to a podcast episode. You know, it's like you may be using different formats for different resources, and you're kind of just finding different ways to study the languages that don't coincide so much. It's all about mixing media, so if we're talking podcasts, if we're talking TV, if we're talking flashcards or language apps, and it's about using them for different things. So maybe you're practicing more reading in one and you're practicing more listening in the other. I think you're picking up what I'm putting down. Just do not have the exact same routine for multiple languages. I do not think that is going to fare very well. And now lastly, to talk about the time aspect. So I feel like, you know, in general, it can feel pretty chaotic sometimes to study multiple languages at the same time, and I feel like the maximum you should be doing is one language per day. I think that if you do multiple languages in a day, that might be a little confusing. So maybe if you have like Hungarian on Mondays, then you have Thai on Tuesdays. If you have French on Wednesdays, I don't know. I think you should at least devote one language per day. I personally do not do that. I know people that do that, and it's been successful for them. I just want to present all the options to you guys. So I've heard day by day. Some people do it week by week. I did this briefly last year in October when I was studying Dutch, German, and French at the same time. For me personally, it didn't work so much because I've discovered that blocking for like at least a month at a time really works for me. But I really encourage you to try different things. So maybe do a whole week switching day by day, and then maybe you do like a couple weeks where you switch out week by week. And then maybe if those don't work for you, you could try it for a month, maybe multiple months at a time. I personally have grown to really like the month at least at a time because I can really kind of develop more of a foundation with the language. I think that that's really beneficial. Something actually that I'm trying for 2021 is doing kind of like a main language back burner language approach. If you don't know what back burner means in English, it just means like not a priority. So like a burner on the stove, here are the front burners, here are the back burners. So, you know, I have 6 languages for 2021, and while I dabble in the 3 languages in the first 3 months, I plan to be studying the languages that I'm already proficient in, kind of like in the background, so maybe 2 days a week. So yeah, not everything has to be completely equally split. Like, you know, obviously the languages that I have a higher level in, they're not as much of a priority because I'm already comfortable in them, as you know. So I will be reporting on how that works as soon as I get into 2021. So I feel like this has been an educational video with a lot of information. If you need to go back and watch it again, I do not blame you. I talk very fast. If you have any questions about learning multiple languages at a time, you can leave me comments down below. I am always responding to comments. And if you want to see me study multiple languages in real time, you can go follow me at Elysda Vega on Twitter. That's ELYSSEVAVEGA. And yeah, that is it for today. I wish everyone very happy holidays. If you don't celebrate, that's cool too. And take care. Bye-bye.